Now I'm going to very quickly run through with you the materials that you are going to need for this pattern. And the most important thing is your hook. I am using a 5mm hook and I'm using that with DK yarn, double knit yarn. You can use it with worsted weight or Aran yarn if you wish. Now, as the name suggests, this is a stash buster, so we have our stash of yarn. I have lots of odd bits of yarn that I want to use up today. So I'm going to try and get all these colours in and more. So just get all the bits out of your stash, no matter how big or small, and we can get rid of those today in this lovely shawl and make something amazing out of it. So we also will need very few pieces of equipment here. So we'll just need a pair of scissors, and that is just to snip off our yarn at the end of each row. And we will need some stitch markers, at least 2 stitch markers, please. And we will also need a tapestry needle, also known as a darning needle. And it just needs to be a blunt needle with a large eye on it if possible. If you have one of those hooked ones, that's also fine. So yes, make sure that you get together all of your pieces of yarn that you want to include in your shawl, and we can of course get rid of them today in this lovely skull shawl. I hope you enjoy the pattern. Get your hooks ready. Okay, so the most important decision for me to start is deciding on which colour I'm going to go with. So I think I'm going to go with my smallest yarn ball and go with the burnt orange to start with. Okay, let's zoom you in a bit. So we are going to start with a chain, and this is going to be the full length of our shawl. So don't be scared when I give you the number of what you need to chain. It does work out a lot quicker when you do it this way. So we are going to do a chain of 188 to begin. And I'm using this DK yarn, of course. If you are using worsted weight yarn, it is going to be a bit thicker and longer, but that's fine. It just means that you'll have a slightly bigger shawl than I will by a few inches. So once you've done your 188 chains, I'll see you at the end. So that is a chain of 188, nice and long, and just make sure that it is as uniform as you can make it, so there's no huge big chains in there. And now what you need to do is, you're going to hate me for this even more, you're going to start from the second chain from the hook, and then we are going to single crochet, and we are going to single crochet in every single stitch. So we are going to go along, and you should end up with 187 single crochets, and I shall see you at the end of this row. Okay, so here is my 187 single crochets, and just make sure that your work does sit flat. You might need to just give it a little bit of a pull to flatten it out, and just make sure that all the stitches can lie flat. If they are curved at all, it may just be that your foundation chain is far too tight. So you might need to loosen it a bit and then redo your stitches, so that you do need to have it as straight as possible, really, because this is a square shawl. You can also up the size of your hook, so maybe go up to a 6mm just for the foundation chain, and then do your single crochets. But this is lying quite flat for me, so I'm happy with that. So I'm going to work on to the next row. Now I could explain to you what filet crochet is and how it works, but it's probably best that I just show you rather than explain it all to you. So what we're going to do in the next row is we're going to put in 2 double crochets in either end of your row, and we're also going to be working on the grid. So we're going to start putting the grid in, so we know where we're going to be working from, and then I'll explain to you the filet crochet bit. So we're just going to do a chain 2 from here, and then turn our work. Okay, and then we can double crochet into the first stitch, and then double crochet into the next stitch. And what that does is, I'll show you on the other shawl, what that does is gives us a bit of an edge, so a little bit of a border at the end of the shawl. You probably can't notice that in the pictures. So this is your starting edge that you've just done in your single crochets, and that gives us a nice edge for the top of the shawl, so it drapes nicer over your shoulders. And then we can start adding in this grid here. Okay, so that's what we're going to be working on next. So we've got our 2 double crochets, and then what we are going to be doing in every stitch is we're going to be doing chain 2, and then we are going to skip 2. So skip 2 of our single crochets. If you turn your work this way, you'll see your V's. So skip 2 of those, and then double crochet into the 3rd stitch. Okay, so this is my 3rd stitch. So I'm going to double crochet into there, and then I'm going to chain 2, same again, skip the first 2 stitches and then into the 3rd. And we are going to do that all the way along, and you should end up with 2 stitches left at the end of your row. So I'll see you at the other end of the row once you've got all your double crochets in. Okay, so I'm just getting to the end of my row, and I've just done my chain 2, and I will have 2 stitches left at the end of my row. So I'm going to put 2 double crochet stitches at the end of the row. So there's 1, and here's 2. Now I'm going to change my colour on this next row, so I'm just going to let's go for light blue. I'm just going to add that on here, and then I'm just going to chain 2, and then we need to turn our work. Okay, I'm just going to tie a knot in this just so I can get the thing secure. Okay, so you should have a total of 61 spaces in between all of your double crochets, and we are counting from your 2 double crochet at the beginning, so that's 1, 2, 3, and then you should have 61 in total. Now I'm going to be showing you why this is in a moment, but what we are going to do is add a little bit of bit more of a grid. The only thing that I didn't quite like on the skull shawl I did here is I only did 2 rows to start with before doing the skull, and I would say I'd probably prefer to have a little bit more of a space there. So what I'm going to do is add 3 more rows of our double crochets here. You can just add the one like I did on that one there. If you're happy with that, that's perfectly fine. So chain 2, and then we need to turn our work, and then we need to do your 2 double crochets in the beginning of the row into those 2 double crochets, and then chain 2, and then you are just going to be working into each of these double crochets, and then chain 2, and then double crochet in there. Okay, so do that all the way along until you get to the other end. You should have your 2 crochets. When you get to the other end, do your 2 crochets there, turn, chain 2, turn, and then do the other rows. So I'll see you after however many rows that you want to do, whether it be 1 row or 3. So I'm just coming to the end of my 3rd row, and I have done all of my double crochets up to here, chain 2, and then I'm just going to do my last 2 double crochets in the end. There's 1 and 2, 1 in the last one, and then chain 2, and then I'm going to turn our work. And before we start on the next row, I'm just going to prepare the grid, and I'm just going to explain to you what we're going to do with this grid. And the best way to do that is probably showing you on the one that I've already made. So as you can see in here, there's lots of holes. So this is the grid part that we need at the start of our shawl that won't have the skeleton, the skull details in it. And then of course when you come to here, you will see there are double crochet stitches inside those spaces. So for every space, you will either have 2 double crochets in the middle and then 1 either side, or it will just be a space with nothing in it and it will just be a chain 2. So it'll either be a 2 double crochet or it'll be a 2 chain. Now what we will do for each section will have 3 double crochets plus the initial post. Because this post, you have one at either side of every stitch, but of course for the next stitch you need to use this one, and then the next stitch you need to use this one. And so when you are counting, if you need to count, for instance, 2 of these, it will have 6 in total plus the first post. You need to include that as well. So that would be 7 double crochets in order to cover those 2 grid spaces. I'll explain it to you as we go. And what we are going to do is just mark out where our skull is going to start and where it's going to finish, because we do have an extra part at the end of our shawl that is just to make the shawl wider. So we need to have 19 of these spaces before our skull starts, and we're going to mark it with a stitch marker. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So if we mark our 19th space, all of the spaces are included, including this one just after our 2 double crochet. Okay, and then we should have 23 spaces for our skull. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and then we should have 19 spaces from this one here. I'm just going to double check mine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Perfect. So we are going to be working our skull pattern in between these 2 stitch markers. So that's going to be our skull, and then these extra parts on the end is just going to be these stitches here that you've already been doing. So what you did in the last row, so double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into the next one, that is basically what you do within those 19 spaces on every single row. Okay, so we are going to start with that. So we've done our chain 2, and we're now going to start working in our next row, and we're going to class this as row 1 because it depends how many of these rows you've done to start with. I'm not sure if you've done 1 or 3. So we are just going to do our 2 double crochet to start. Make sure you do that on every single row. And then chain 2, and then do your first double crochet as you have been, and then continue that along until you get to your stitch marker, and I'll see you once you've got your 19th space. Okay, so I have my 19 spaces, and I've come to the last space and covered the last space over our stitch marker, so that is showing that that is our 19th space, and then the next one is where our skull pattern starts. Now for the first 8 spaces of this row, for the skull, for the first 8 is going to be blank spaces, so we're just going to class them as spaces. Now we're going to do chain 2 and double crochet into each of these until we have 8 spaces along. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I'll just double check that. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't need my chain 2 for this one. So that's 8. Now for the next 7 spaces, we are going to be filling them with our double crochets. Now, if you don't have anything below it, you need to double crochet into the space. So we've got our side post already there from the last stitch. So we just need to do 7 lots of 3 double crochets along here, and our third stitch is going to be our second post. So in each space there's going to be 2 double crochets. So we'll put 2 double crochets into here. There's 1 and 2, and then the third one into the post, and then the next 2, 1 and 2, and then the third one into the next post, and then 2 into the next, and then 1 into the next post. Okay, so I'm just going to show you that so you can see that's covered 3 spaces, and what we need to do is cover all 7 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it should take us up to here. Okay, so I'll just see you once you've finished those. Okay, so that's all 7 of those finished. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that is 7 blocks. We're going to call these spaces, so the ones that don't have anything in them, and these are blocks. Okay, so for the next 8 you will have spaces, so you should have 8 spaces left until you get to your stitch marker. So if you do those 8 and then continue on and do your 19 until you get to your 2 double crochets at the end, you'll do your 2 double crochets, chain 2, turn your work, and then do another 19 of those, and then I'll see you back at the stitch marker once you've got to here on the next row. Okay, so this is row 2, and we have just done our 19 spaces to start, and then we are going to do our skull pattern, which is going to start with 6 spaces this time. So we're going to do our chain 2 double crochet for another 6 spaces, so this is why we keep our stitch marker here, so we can refer to this. So we're going to count 6 from here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, so I've got 2 more, 1 and 2. Okay, so that's our spaces, and now we need some blocks in here, which will continue on from this one, and we need 11 blocks for this one. Now the easiest way to do this, because we're now going to be working into these double crochets as well now, we need 11 blocks with 3 in each plus the initial post. So we will need to do the post to start and then count 33 from there. So 11 times 3 is 33. So we need to count our double crochets from the post. So we're going to do 2 in here. There's 1 and 2. Then our post is 3, 4, 5 and 6. And you will notice that every post that you do, it's multiples of 3. So that's 3, there's 6, and then at the next one there should be 9, and then continue on until you get to all of your 33. So you need to go across all of your double crochets. I'll do that with you. If you want to just double check, so you've got that one there that we're going to ignore, the initial post, and then we've got 3, so 3, 6, 9, and then 12, oh, muscle memory there, I did another chain. And just continue along your double crochets. You can probably hear the rain, it's terrible out there. Nearly there. So this first bit of the skull is quite difficult, and trying to get all the stitches in. There's a lot more stitches in the top half of the skull as there is in the bottom, so it does get a lot easier the more that you do. You'll be pleased to know. And that's the last post, and then you want 2 more blocks here, so we're going to use that as our first post, and then 1, 2 in there, and do another post, and then 1, 2, and your last post here. Okay, so you should have 33 double crochets all the way along there, and that covers 11 blocks. So if you want to just double check how many blocks that you've done, so you've got your stitch marker here, that is the last of your 19 spaces, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces, and then we should have 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then the next one is going to be a space, and then we are going to continue until we get to our stitch marker, which should be 6 spaces to finish with. So if you continue with your chain 2 double crochet for 6 more spaces, that will take you to your stitch marker, which of course means you then need to do your 19 chain 2 double crochets, and then you do your 2 double crochets in the end, chain 2, turn your work, and then do your 19 spaces again, and I'll see you when you get to the stitch marker on the next row. So this is the end of my 19 spaces at my stitch marker, and on this row we are on row 3, so we are going to be doing another 4 spaces this time. So we are going to do 4, try doing that one properly, 4 double crochet, chain 2, 1, 2, 3, this is my last one, 4, and then we need to work into the next 15 blocks, so we should have 15 blocks at the end of this one. Now we've already got 11 on here, so we just need to add 2 to the either end. So I'll show you again how to do that. So we just need to put 2 double crochets into the space instead of a chain 2, and then we do our post, and then 2 double crochets into here, and then our post, and then continue on and put a double crochet into each of those double crochets, and then when you get to the other end you'll have 2 more blocks here. So if you continue with those, and I'll see you once you've finished them. Okay, I've just zoomed out there for you so you can see the ends. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, and then we have 15 blocks. If you want to just double check those and count them, make sure you have 2 either side of the row that you've just done previously, and then we need to have 4 at the end. You should have 4 spaces left. So we'll do our chain 2 double crochet for 4 spaces plus your 19. So continue on, do the 19, do your 2 double crochet at the end, chain 2 and turn, and then do your 19 as normal back to your stitch marker, and I shall see you on the next row. Okay, so we're on row 4, and this is my 19 spaces done up to the stitch marker. And in this row we need 3 spaces at the beginning. So after our 19, do 3 spaces. So chain 2 double crochet, pretty sure you know the drill. There's 1 and 2. This is so repetitive, it's going to be easy to do in front of the TV. Sorry, that's 3. I've done 3 there. So there's 19, and then 1, 2, 3 spaces, and then we need to be working into this for our block, because we need 17 blocks. So 1 either side again. Well, we did 2 before, we're only doing the 1 this time. So we've got our post, and then we're just doing our 2 double crochets into the space, and then our post, and then continue on in all the double crochets all the way along until you get to the other end, and then you add another one at the end. You should have 3 spaces and then your 19 spaces, and then get your other 19 spaces done, and I'll see you on the next row. Okay, so that's my 19 spaces, and we are at the stitch marker, and this time we are going to be doing leaving 2 spaces at the beginning before our skull. So we just need to do a chain 2 double crochet into the double crochet. You'll see what I mean when I say you can do this while watching a show or something, because it's just repetitive. It really is. That's why I don't want to explain it for too much, because some of it's self-explanatory. So even if you haven't done filet crochet before, it's very easy to pick up. So we've got our 19 and then our 2 spaces, and then we need 19 spaces, so 1 on each side again. So basically repeat what you did in the last row. So we add 1 more onto here. So we do our post, which we've already done our post, and then we'll do 2 double crochets into here, and then our post. So that's that 1 extra one, and then continue on with all the double crochets all the way along, and you should have 19 lots of 3, and then you will have 2 spaces at the end before your 19. Do your 19, and then do 2 double crochet, chain 2, turn, 2 double crochet, and then do your 19, and then I will see you for row 6. Okay, so that's our 19 spaces done. And for the start of this one, it's very simple. We only need one space for this one. So this will be a very quick round. We've also got the next row will be exactly the same as this one. So we leave one space, we fill this one. So we've got one space, one block, and then continue on with the double crochets, and then do the same on the other end. So add a block and then one space, and then continue with your 19, come back and then repeat exactly the same pattern, and then come back and do your 19, and then do your chain 2, turn, and then come back to your 19 onto row 8, and then we will have more repetition, so you'll be able to sit and chill and do those rows, and then I will be able to do some of the features in the face, and I'll show you what I mean. So we have done these rows here, so we're about to do these rows here, and they're repetitive until you get down to these bits, and we're going to start adding in the features in the face. So we've got the eyebrow, and then you've got your eyes to add in, and then I'll start going through that with you. So we're going to finish this as part 1, and we are going to do part 2 with the remainder. So if you get us to row 8, row 8 will be the start of part 2. So if you follow the rest of this one and do part 2 next. So sit and chill, do this while you're watching a show. It's pretty easy, pretty simple. And then it will be a little bit more difficult when we get to the other rows further down the bottom of the skull. But I'll do that with you. So I'll do that in a different part. Okay, see you in part 2.